Hi there. Welcome back. I'm Sean Osterlink, and this is Overcoming with ACT. I wanted to follow up the previous Defusion skill videos that I made with a guided meditation using those skills. And so what I've laid out here on the board are those same activities that I put in the Defusion skills video. I think it was 1 through 4. And so I have here, notice it's just a thought, just noticing that's just a thought, that's just a feeling, that's just an emotion. Thanking your mind for it. Thank you, mind. Thanks for that. Pop it in there, whatever that is. Noting that it's not a helpful thought. Okay, so the function of the thought. That thought is not helpful for me. That thought is not functional for me. I can just note that that's really not workable. It's not useful. And I can see that thought is that thought a tool that's useful for me or not, rather than as believing its content and taking it as truth. So, and then the last one is I wrote here, oh look, there it is again. And so taking this curious stance towards the thought, just looking at it as and this is not in the same order as I put that in. I rearranged those last two, but simply noticing that it's showing up again. That there is this thing, this process showing up again. I can just be like, oh, hey, there it is showing up. There's that anxiety. There's that fear. There's that anger. There's that maybe that intrusive thought or that unwanted thing or that thing I'm stressed about or that thing that I wish I could shoo away, and just taking that stance and being like, oh, okay, interesting, that showed up there. There it is. And that changes the stance away from a stance of judgment or a stance of fear. And so I'm going to guide you through just practicing these for a few minutes today. So there's my recap. And now at this point, for the viewer, whoever may be watching this, you can get into a comfortable and safe position, whatever you're at, wherever you're doing. If you're in a position where you can do some mindfulness right now, and we're gonna start with just focusing on the breath. Usually, when I do guided activities in the office here, I like to start with grounding, just on that sense of breath. So I want you to just tune into your body now, tune into your breath, and take a deep breath in through the nose, holding that there for a few seconds, and when you're ready, we're going to breathe that out. Nice gentle exhale, emptying the lungs. You may do that more forcefully, less forcefully. Do it as feels comfortable for you. And with each breath, I want you to just notice what you can about that breath coming in, and as you hold that there and as it goes out. Again, breathing in, holding that, and breathing out. And as we're doing this activity, there's nothing that you need to change. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're feeling right now, you can let it be there. Whatever might be going through your mind, whatever might be stressing you, whatever might be calm, you don't need to change a thing as you're doing this. We're just noticing what's showing up in the body. So again, I want to move you back into the next breath. And continue breathing. If I'm talking, you can continue breathing. Breathing in when you're ready. Holding that. Breathing out. A couple more times. Breathing in through the nose. Holding that breath, breathing out, and as you continue to breathe, I want you to notice, I want you to continue breathing on your end as the viewer, and I want you to tune into what your mind is doing in this moment as you breathe in and as you breathe out. I want you to move from that sense of the breath into the sense of the thinking space. And as you move into the thinking space, I want you to practice looking for that opportunity to notice a thought, to notice what your mind is doing right now, and to simply observe it. To simply tell yourself, I notice that thought showing up. That's a thought. I see that thought there. And then I want you to move from that thought to whatever the next thing is that's showing up in your mind. You might notice that thought, that new thought that comes in. If you're still on the first thought, you might shift back into noticing your breath. And we can just move in and out of these experiences. So you might move back into noticing the body. Notice the feeling and notice the sensation of a breath, right? We can do that now with another breath. And so moving from that thinking space back into noticing what it feels like to hold that air, to breathe that out. Then moving back into the mind, back into the head. Maybe you stayed there, and I want you to just kind of gently hop from one thought to another, simply observing what's going on here. What is going through my mind at this moment? Just taking a moment to observe. Just see that thing there. Just notice that your mind is thinking, and it's okay for it to have that thought. If you notice a thought that come into your mind that you don't like, that's intrusive, that's negative, that's uncomfortable in some way, right? That triggers that sense of discomfort or judgment. I want you to practice simply thanking your mind for that thought. It's an opportunity to practice this skill. I'm going, thank you, mind. Thank you for that thought. I noticed that thought, and then I'm moving on to the next one. I'm not pushing it away. There's not shoving going on. It can be there. And then I'm looking to see what else can I tune into. And so if you notice that there's a new thought, you can tune into that new thought. If you notice that your mind is feeling kind of hooked on whatever is intrusive in there, then we might pivot. Go, thank you, mind. I'm going to turn the volume back up on what is physical to me, and so we can tune back into the breath. So just gently turning the mind to noticing your breath again. Breathing in, holding that, and breathing out. Okay. Now you might tune into some of your other senses. Right? We can stay in this space of noticing the external. And so you might put your hands on something and notice what you can feel, or you might put your feet on something and notice the contact of the floor, or your body, and notice the contact of wherever you're seated or wherever you're standing. And I just want you to tune into that then. So kind of giving a little wave to the mind and going from that thinking self. If you're in that thinking space as you're breathing, you're moving into the body then and turn the volume up on noticing the body. And when you just notice, what's the texture, what's the pressure, what's the feel of wherever you're sitting or wherever you're standing as you're watching this or listening to this. You might even be doing some other activity as you're listening to this video. So I want you to just tune into what's in contact with you in this moment. And take that in for just a few seconds, a few moments. And then we're going to move back again. We're going to move back into the mind. So we're going outside, we're going back into the thinking space. And allow your mind to do whatever thinking it wants to do now. Okay, we're moving back into the mind. We're giving the mind a kind of free rein. If it wants to think, let it think. If it wants to worry, let it worry. If it wants to criticize this video and how I'm doing it, let your mind do that. If there's something that's coming in that's a process you notice, if this is something familiar, something you don't like, then I want you to practice saying, oh, there that is again. Take that curious, you're like a scientist who's curious, observing a phenomenon occur. We're waiting for it, we're watching for it, and there it is. It happened again. Maybe there's anxiety again. Maybe there's depression again. Maybe there's fear about something that's happening in your life, or fear about something happening in the world, or something that's stressing you out. Maybe there's a process. Maybe there's some impulse for something, an impulsive behavior, an addictive behavior. Something pops in to where you can go, there it is again. And it's okay for me to notice that. It's okay for it to be there. I'm not trying to tear it out. I'm not trying to throw it away. I'm not trying to fight with it. I'm just opening up to allow it to be there right now. So there it is again. There it is again. And then see if you can notice the next thing that shows up in your mind. What else is showing up there? We're looking around the mind. The mind is a highway of traffic, potentially, of thoughts. Some people have quieter minds. Some people have busier minds. I want you to just notice what is your mind doing. Are there other things there that you can notice? Are there other thoughts there where you go, and that's a thought. And that's a thought. Even if it's something maybe scary or unpleasant. Just noticing these thought clouds. The mind is this machine, and it's just putting these clouds out there of thoughts. The next thing perhaps. And so just noticing, and there's a thought, and there's a thought. And for all of these thoughts, it's okay for them to be there. Okay, and so you're going to move now from that thought, wherever you're at. And I want you to notice if there's a thought there that is more of that negative, that unwanted, that thought that might be a hook for you, that it could pull you in. Maybe you're already feeling pulled into something. But if you're not, you might notice if one of those is there, because we're going to practice skill number 4 on the other video, which is noticing the function of it, noticing whether it's helpful or not. And so I want you to speak to that thought in this way, really viewing it as almost mechanical, or as a tool or something, to hold that and go, you know what, that thought there, it can be there. I'm allowing it to be there. And you know what, this one isn't helpful for me. This one isn't helpful for me right now. Maybe it was in the past. Maybe it will be, but it's not helpful for me right now. It's not very useful. It's not very functional for me right now. And then you might thank it as well. This thought isn't helpful. And thank you, mind, for it. And there it is. And I notice that that's there. And that's just a thought. Whatever it's claiming to be, whatever worry it might be trying to strike up in you, whatever way it might be trying to grab hold and fuse you. It is not what it portrays itself to be. It's just noise in your mind. And if that noise isn't useful for you, if it's not going to be helpful in this moment, that to move you towards some sort of useful action or move you towards doing something important in your life, then maybe that thought isn't very helpful right now. And we're not going to shoo it away. We're just going to tune into other things. So it can be there. We're going to go, hey, I notice you there. And yet that thought isn't very helpful. I'm going to bring it back to the body. Okay, so if you've been doing some breathing during this activity while I've been talking, you might tune back into your breath and take a deeper, more noticeable one. And go, noticing the inhale, holding that there, and breathing it out. And just tuning back into your body, just turning up the volume of the body. There, and what you notice right here in the present. And so I want you to move from that breath into what's around you. So moving out of that sense of contact with the physical and move into some of your other senses. So I want you to notice, what can you hear right now? Maybe even 2 or 3 things that you can hear right now. You might notice the sound of my voice. That's a freebie. You might notice what it sounds like to listen to my voice. What is it like in this moment to just listen, to just hear? Just be with that. If you take away any judgment from that, if you take away any thinking from what you notice you're hearing right now, those other things that you notice, just listen to what it sounds like. Right here, right now in the present. And then look around your space and notice what is around you. If your mind is tugging at you at all, if it's trying to pull you into a thinking space, just thank it. That's not helpful in this moment. That's just a thought. Maybe there's a physical pain, a discomfort. You can observe that too. It's okay for that feeling, that sensation to be there. Just observe it and let it be there. And then move back into what you can see right now. I want you to pick 2 or 3 things that you can see. And just notice, what's the color? What's the shape? What's the texture? Right in this moment, just coming into the now, without judgment, without getting caught up thinking too much about what you're seeing. Just see it as if you'd never looked at it before. Moving from one object to the next. And then moving from seeing, I want you to move into the thinking space. And what is one word that comes to mind concerning a value that's important to you? Of how you want to show up today in your day. Maybe why it's important to you to be practicing ACT. Why it's important to you to grow and to change and to be a better you. What's one word that comes to mind? And as I do this activity, the word truth comes to mind to me, that the truth is a value that's important to me. And so how can I go forth into the rest of my day valuing truth, acting upon truth, maybe through honesty and ethical behavior, and in the words that I say and in the ways that I behave, and how I deal with people and interact with the world. Okay, what word comes to mind for you? And then staying in that thinking space, what would it be like to act on that in some way today? What challenge might you face in practicing that value? What will you face as you go into the rest of the day or the next day that could challenge that? And how would you like to react or respond intentionally to that challenge? How would you like to overcome that by keeping in mind this value, this thing that's important to you, this way that you want to show up to life? And I want you to imagine that right now, that you're living it, that you're doing it, that whatever situation that may come to mind, that you practice that value, that you live that out, that you could look back at that and the way you live out that value in a proud way. And you imagine you're doing that. Hang out in that space for just a little bit longer. Something matters to you. There's a way that you want to show up. What is that? What would it look like to be doing that? What gets in the way? And what would it look like to be overcoming that? And then what is the next step you can take to acting that out, to living that out, that thing that's important to you, that value? You might consider writing that down or journaling about it, or talking to someone who might be maybe motivational or to bounce it off of. And so with that, we went through diffusing these thoughts, taking a step back and observing them, the non-judgment stance, opening up, allowing them to be there, practicing a stance of acceptance, moving into what matters to you, moving from the present, from grounding into the present, back into the thinking self, to where then there's freedom to move, freedom to choose and act on what matters to you. Okay, so if you followed this through with me today in this video, then we've practiced most, if not all, of the various elements of ACT and the hexaflex. So thank you if you've stuck around with me, and I look forward to doing more videos like this, and I plan on doing the next video with some more of these diffusion skills. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.